Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to Upkick MMA, episode 297. I am Brennan. Ultimate Fighter, season 31, episode 8. Okay, this is going to cover the Hunter Azure versus Rico Disciullo fight. This is obviously the Conor McGregor, Michael Chandler season. Okay, this is going to be covering the last of the initial fights that were set up by the teams. As we know, Conor McGregor has not had a win. His team has not had a win this entire time. So there was a lot on the line here. Real quick, before we get into the episode, we're going to break down the fight. We're going to break down what happens in the episode. This will probably be a shorter episode. Subscribe to the channel if you like this kind of stuff. You want to know the next video is coming out. I appreciate it, and it'll help you out too, because that way you'll see when my stuff comes out. And then also, I post video breakdowns of all the fights from the weekends and stuff. So if you're into that, you can see those too. Okay, so real quick, spoilers if you haven't seen this episode. My first thought when I saw this episode, or saw the end of this episode, was oh man, I forget the woman's name from Ghostbusters, who's the secretary, when she goes, "We got one!" That's all I thought of when I saw Conor McGregor running back and forth like a jackass, like he won the goddamn Super Bowl because one of his fighters finally got a win. Good for him, good for the team, good for all that. Let's talk about the episode just a little bit, and then if you're looking for the fight breakdown, if you want to jump right to that, the timestamp's down below. So, of course, they can't just focus on the current fight, but they got to go back. So they're talking about Quinones, that was from last week, or maybe even 2 weeks ago, getting better, when he fought Jason Knight. And he's talking to Jason Knight about getting better, and he's going to be painting a masterpiece, because that's what Jason Knight told him and all this stuff. It was just kind of annoying. It's one of those things where I hear people, it sounds disingenuous coming from certain people, and maybe it's just the way he talks, and that's just how he is, but he has so much like false bravado, and he's trying to put on airs and show that, oh, he's tough, and he had the same kind of fake swagger before he fought, and when he came into the house and he was talking shit and all that stuff, and he's got to keep up the tough face, like, oh man, I grow so much from my losses and all this and that. It just seems, like I said, disingenuous. When I see people talk like that, it's not, again, I don't know him personally. This might just be who he is as a person, right? Every personality isn't for every person, right? You're not going to be friends with everyone you meet, and it doesn't mean they're necessarily a bad person. It's just, your personalities don't mesh well. You're just not going to get along with each other. Just shit happens. So just when they go to that, I instantly had more dislike of him. I'm like, oh God, like I don't want to listen to this guy talk shit anymore. Like he got his ass beat. Well, he got caught in that triangle, but it doesn't matter. So another thing that happened here in this episode, when they were breaking it down, Dana was talking about if Chandler's team does get the clean sweep, right, the 8-0 record against McGregor's team, they're going to have to make some adjustments going forward this season. What adjustments? Dude, he's only got one. Okay, so his fighter ends up winning here, but come on. Some of those people are going to have to go over to Conor's team. My guess is Brad Katona is probably, like I said last week, Brad Katona is probably going to go over there. Obviously, he's teammates with him anyway. It's not that he didn't take Chandler's advice or anything. It's just he has more familiarity and he's used to the coaches, and that's his team. So I wouldn't. Who would be mad at him for going to train with his actual team like that? I think that's going to be an easy one. But there's going to have to be some other fighter who goes over to Team McGregor. That'd be my guess, because how are they going to split up that much time? And Chandler's going to be coaching everybody. It's going to be real hard for them to do that. In this episode, I actually liked it a little bit more. They covered some more of Conor's training, and they did it in a way where it was less about philosophical. I don't want to say philosophical bullshit, because it's not, right. It's important to have a good fighter, like a good fighter's mindset, and to understand pain tolerances and putting up with things when you're in a fight, and that's a part of the game. Whether you emphasize that or you emphasize technical ability or cardio or anything like that, it doesn't really matter. Like, they all kind of work together, and it depends on the fighting style and who's going to be, who you're fighting against. And also, again, the person, when they're coming up, what do they naturally gravitate towards? Do they gravitate towards negative reinforcement? Do they gravitate towards positive reinforcement? Do they naturally have really good cardio and they don't have to work on that really that much specifically? So one of the things that I've noticed is a lot of Connor's episodes, a lot of the training in the previous episodes from Connor's team is like he's focused on a lot of the psychological stuff. Like he'll make comments about, fighters' mentality, staying tough and breaking fighters and breaking their will and getting in their head. And again, that's a part of the fight game, and I understand it, but I appreciate more of the technical stuff, and that's for me personally. I really like it when they showed the technical things that Connor's thinking. It's just one of those things where unless you train with Connor or you've watched a lot of tape, I don't know if he puts on seminars. My guess would be no, based off of his current net worth. I don't think he's going to be doing that, and I don't know if he's got any tapes I don't think he has any skill breakdowns or anything like that he's sold or put out there. So you're seeing the technical stuff, this kind of things that go through McGregor's head when he's in there, and the way he thinks about striking, and which is his forte, obviously. That's kind of cool. That's really cool to me. Okay, so that's what I really loved about this episode. They really showed that. Did they show that because it ends up playing a bigger role in the fight? Probably. You're trying to tell a narrative, right? You're trying to tell a story, even though this is a documentary style filmmaking, because obviously it's a reality TV show. So they still have to tell a story. And the thing is, that story has to be contained within a 45-minute episode, right? Because, you have to have the build up, the challenges, and then you have the conclusion, but it all happens in one episode. So if the editors have, their work cut out for them every episode, and they've been telling the story the whole time about Connor, being absent-minded, being absent from his team and not being there and all this other stuff, and more aloof. And this episode really focusing on his technical abilities and his training, and I don't think that is an accident. I think they set this up to show like, oh, hey, when he does do this, look, the guy wins. Crazy how that works. I'm sure he's done technical stuff before. They just didn't show it because it wouldn't paint the same narrative. And then, Azure really seems like one of those guys. If you look at his look at his record here, one of those guys in the UFC. It just seems like he had bad timing, because he comes in, he beats Brad Katona, then he loses to Brian Boom Kelleher, when Brian Kelleher was putting it on people, and then he wins against Cole Smith, and then he loses against Jack Tank Sword, like again a really good fighter, and then loses to Keith Richardson. So. Oh wait, that's not even in the UFC. No, he only had 4 fights in the UFC. See, that's the thing, man. He had the win in Dana White Contender Series, and he wins against Brad Katona, loses to Kelleher, wins against Smith, loses a split decision to Jack Shore. Again, I have to go back and look at my scoring for that, but that's what I'm saying, though, is like it just seems like bad timing on his loss. It seems like they were in a round of cuts, and he was just one of those guys who didn't impress, and because of his fighting style with the pressure forward and the wrestling stuff, he's not the most exciting guy, right? So I think he's just a victim of bad timing. And he is 10-3, whereas his opponent here, who's never fought in the UFC, is actually 11-2. He's had more fights, so it's interesting. And the thing is, like he had that loss to Montel Jackson on the Dana White Contender Series, but other than that, he's had a really good professional career here. He's no slouch in the experience department. Okay, let's get into the fight, shall we? So, Hunter Azure taking on Rico Disciullo. Or Disciullo, sorry. Not Disciullo. Disciullo. Rico started out with the hard low kick, swinging big to keep Hunter off of him. That did not last very long. Hunter with the pressure, constantly looking for that takedown. And Rico countered with downward elbows. I think one of those ended up cutting him. It might have been an upward elbow when he was off his back, but Hunter got cut open pretty bad. Hunter finally worked to a dominant ground position, land some good ground and pound. Hunter was staying glued to him. Rico was trying to counter with strikes off his back. It's just, this was Hunter's round, right? He was in his face, on top of him, landing damage, very controlled, plenty of damage on his side, even though Rico landed some good damage of his own. It's just, a lot of this was Azure's round, so it was obviously a 10-9. Second round starts. Rico lands a great right hand, and he's looking for that uppercut when Hunter changes levels, and then Rico lands a hard leg kick and a big right hand a couple seconds later, and he ends it with a Donkey Kong, like, double hammer fist. Great shot from Disciullo. Bad luck for Azure. It's I hate calling it a lucky shot because, everybody makes their own luck. They put themselves in a position to be lucky. And Azure was doing everything right, and he just got caught. He just got caught, and shit happens. It's MMA, and it's bad luck. I think Azure was on his way to at least a decision victory, but probably a TKO in this round. If he got it to the ground, I think he would have broke Disciullo. And I think Disciullo, again, luck isn't the exact right word in the terms of like, oh, well, he just rolled the dice and therefore he wins. It's more of, he it wasn't a Hail Mary, but he just got incredibly, he got lucky, right? He got lucky. He threw a shot, it landed just right. And like I said, you have to make your own luck. You put yourself in a position to be lucky. And that's what he did. And good for him. And he took advantage of the situation, didn't wait on it, and really went for that double hammer fist finish and got it. And then immediately Connor, that's what I said at the beginning of the episode. That was the end of the fight breakdown. So Connor, and then he's talking shit to all Chandler's team, and he's running around acting like a jackass, and he's doing the high step like, like he just looked like a fucking clown. I understand he's excited because his team finally won, but dude, scoreboard. Your team went 1-7. Calm down. And he's up there talking about a bunch of unfinished 2-round fights. So that's the fight format. I didn't lose respect for Connor as a person or anything, but I do now have an understanding about his mentality a little bit more, and I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like when people excuse their losses or come up with reasons for their losses, like explanations for their losses, in a way that discredits the format of the entire competition that they entered, right? They entered a competition with mixed rules, or they entered a competition with just kickboxing rules, and they're like, at the end of the kickboxing match, like, oh, well, if I could have wrestled this guy, I would have kicked his ass. Yeah, dude, but you're in a kickboxing match, right? Like, the format of this is there's 2 rounds. You have 2 rounds to do stuff. You don't do it, you lose. It is what it is, man. I really don't like when people make those excuses. The one of the worst ones in recent memory is Jorge Masvidal versus Colby Covington. Immediately after getting dominated for 25 minutes and only landed like 3 or 4 good shots, hard shots on Colby, but he essentially just got dominated. Or you want to call it 24 minutes of a 25-minute fight. And immediately afterwards, he's talking shit. It's like, dude, you just had 25 minutes. No hold, like in a virtual, and as close to a no holds barred fight as you can get, as close to a street fight as possible, minus weapons found at the bar. You just had that opportunity for nearly the better part of a half an hour, and you didn't fucking take advantage of it, man. And then his team's like excusing the shit, being like, "Oh, dude, all he wanted to do was wrestle. You wanted to fight. You were beating him in that fight." No, you weren't. It's fucking mixed martial arts, dude. Come on. So when people use the format that they've entered in as an excuse for their loss or their bad performance, it drives me fucking nuts. Don't sign up for it if you don't want to compete in that format. Really quick, at the end of the episode, they're breaking down like how they're going to set up. Obviously, they're going to make the recommendations and trying to figure out who the hardest fight is, who the easiest fight is for everybody, and blah, blah, blah. And they're all talking, they're talking to Dana White. Each fighter does. And then obviously Connor and Chandler sit down, and they're very professional with each other. So I like that stuff. I like it when guys can be professional and have conversations about technical things. They can have conversation about business. They can have conversations about sports. And then when they need to turn it up, they can talk shit, and then they can, immediately turn it off and they don't have to be best friends, but they can be professional with each other. I really like that stuff. Every fighter thought Timur was the toughest fight, and the easiest fight was Rico. So, Rico making it past that first round here, blessing and a curse, because he's picked out as definitely the weakest of all of them. And then for the lightweights, Rowe and Hubbard, they're picked as the toughest. It's back and forth between, who thinks who's tougher. And then at the end of the episode, Connor let Rico drive the Lambo, which was pretty cool because Rico's like, hey, when are you going to let me drive the Lambo? He's like, come on, man. Fucking give it a rip. Let's get the fuck in there. Like, I thought that was super cool. I've had that experience before, not in a Lamborghini, mind you, but I mentioned something about somebody's motorcycle being really cool. I'm like, oh, that's a really cool motorcycle. And the dude is like, oh, yeah, you want to go look at it? And he brings the keys. We go, and I figure exactly like Rico says, he's going to let me sit on the motorcycle, start it up maybe, and like check it out and stuff. And he's like, throws me the keys, goes back inside. He's like, yeah, take it for a spin. Let me know what you think. I'm like, what the like, you're just going to let me ride your bike? Didn't even know if I can ride a motorcycle. I mean, I told him I could, but I could be lying. He doesn't know. And I obviously, like, I do know how to ride a motorcycle, and I took it for a spin. Loved the bike. So, you know, I know that experience. It's super cool. I thought that was cool that Connor did that. So I know that I just said this would be a short episode, but I lied. If you like this kind of stuff, you like the incoherent ramblings of yours truly, go ahead and subscribe to the channel so you know the next video is coming out. Helps me out as well. If you like this video, click the like button. I'd appreciate that. And then, you know, go check out, I have broken down every single episode of the season. So if you're, you know, behind, or if you want to go back and watch some of those, I have a companion piece for every episode, as well as every UFC event from the past couple years, right? So if you're on UFC Fight Pass and you're perusing and you're looking at some UFC fight cards, you want to watch a card all the way through, go ahead, check out my channel. Just search it, you know, Upkick MMA, that whatever fight card it was, whoever it was, and I have a companion piece for it. So if you want to either commiserate with someone about something or get really excited and listen to me talk about those things, I got episodes for that. So hope you all have an amazing week. Love y'all.